Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to mattnews.biz. I'm just going to take care of some stuff real quick. Make sure that we've got some audio going online and everything. I've got a couple of guests lined up for you, and we're going to be talking about a pretty serious subject here. Give me 1 second. Make sure all my pretty serious subject. There we go. All right. All right. Tonight we're going to be talking about a new podcast that was kind of brought to our attention by one of our friends who's on the show, Nate Baranowski. He's presented this show that's called, it's a podcast, and it's called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, and it's about Mars Hill Church, and it's about Pastor Mark Driscoll, who was the pastor there. And I actually want to show really quick an article just to kind of bring this into light. So here we go. This article is from August 21st, 2014. 21 former Mars Hill church pastors bring formal charges against Mark Driscoll. On the heels of what was arguably the worst week in the history of Mars Hill Church, 21 former Mars Hill church pastors brought charges late last week against lead pastor Mark Driscoll, accompanied by a cover letter, briefs on workplace bullying, and a summary of the powers of Mars Hill elders. The charges are being leveled by well-respected former pastors, are in the possession of the Mars Hill leadership. There's a lot of misogyny is something that's happening, that was happening at the church, and then even misallocation of funds. And a lot of it has to do with just the power that the pastor had there. And here in October, we actually see October 2014, Mark Driscoll actually resigned from the church as the charges were being laid out to him. So after nearly 20 years as lead pastor of Seattle's Mars Hill Church, Mark Driscoll has resigned. So this is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And so I want to go ahead and give me 1 second here because I'm still working out all this stuff. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring on my guests here. 1 second. All right, guys, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So Mars Hill, the downfall, what is it? The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, correct? That's the name of the podcast.
That's the one.
Now I feel like I'm in official podcast mode. I'm like forgetting that we're having a conversation. So Nate, how did you run? Because you're the one who brought it to our attention. Because for those who don't know, me, Nate, Josh, and a few other people that we know are all part of a Instagram group, and so we all talk to each other. We all talk about all things creative, non-creative, tech, not tech, everything.
Loki finale.
Yeah. Loki finale. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and Nate, you brought to our attention this controversial podcast.
Right. No, I had actually heard about it from another podcast, a podcast called. It actually reminds me of a lot of what you do, Matt, called Theology in the Raw, with Preston Sprinkle, and he has conversations with a lot of people from kind of across the spectrum, and has these very intense conversations, but in a pretty lighthearted way. And I heard about it, I believe, through a guest that he had on there, and immediately I was interested because I find church structure and knowing a lot of people who've been on staff at different churches in America, I have been both troubled and fascinated by sort of the American church, and it seems like the closer you get to the center of a lot of churches, it just at times seems like, the people seem going from volunteering to being on staff it almost seems like the closer you move towards the center of the orbit, the more dysfunctional it can be. And so it was resonating with my experience with knowing people through different areas of my life, and the closer they got to maybe the decision makers in the church, the worse it became. And so, yeah, I started listening to it. I got halfway through that first episode and then messaged you guys. And I was basically like, well, this needs to be listened to.
Right. Well, I feel like it's actually a stem on a conversation we had previously on the show, where we started talking about like what churches could do better. And then I was hesitant to say I was hesitant to say anything because I was employed by a church at the time, but now I am not.
Yeah.
And the gloves come off.
And the gloves come off. So Josh, you binged the show.
Yeah.
I love your furniture, by the way, Josh.
He's showing us
Thank
his
you.
TV, his setup.
I know
here.
I'm moving around. I need to stay in the same place. Forgive me. I'm doing a tour of my apartment as we do this. So yeah, I think I started backwards, as a matter of fact, which is funny. You guys started commenting, and at first I was just like, oh, okay, it seems interesting, but I'll get to it when I get to it. But certain people in our group started making comments that kind of made me say, like, okay, everybody started, man, this, wow, this is, and I'm like, all right, I'm not doing anything. I'll listen to an episode. And I started with episode 5. And for me, that's probably the hardest listen that I've had so far. It was very hard to listen to, but I think we all know, we all make jokes about it. The Christian Marriage Conference. It's so cringy. It's so not funny. It's so like, why are we doing this? Why is it like that? And it just kind of, threw up a flag to me. It's like, wow, so many churches do this. So many churches are just, over sexualized and over, and how we treat women and everything like that. So that first episode, I was just like, okay, what else are we talking about? Then I bounced around. I didn't go in order. The next episode I listened to, which Matt, I think you had a hard time, was Read Your Bible, Ringo.
Yeah.
Was that the one?
Yeah.
Yep. I listened to that, and it's just, it's kind of comforting, but it's sad at the same time that when you go through something like this and you think your experience is unique, you think like, man, I just got caught up in a bad way, and I just found myself in the wrong place, and I just take whatever it was that God had for me there, and I just try to use it to propel myself forward. And then you come to find out that this is happening everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
This is happening all over. Like, this is the American church, that all of these people are trying to find Jesus, and I was blessed to come to know Jesus as a child. I've been in the church industry, whatever you want to call it, my whole life. And it's just so sad that in my heart of hearts, I just want to share with people what I found. I want to share with people this thing that keeps me going, that drives me forward. And thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are just looking for this thing, and they're being driven into the ground. They're being led astray in such a grotesque and large manner. I don't know, it's saddening at the same time, but you take comfort in it because it's not just me.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Say what?
So that just kind of propelled me to. That just really propelled me to be a part of this, or want to be a part of this, and the unique experiences that I've had along this church path, I guess.
Yeah, well, like I feel like your story, so your story is kind of a little bit harder because you, the previous position you held was at a church. You currently work at a church now, but the previous position you held, actually, uh, you were let go of that position. You didn't have a choice to leave that position.
No, I didn't. And forgive me, guys, if I'm out of frame. I'm trying to navigate this to make that possible, but technology. But
You can keep
in
it
the
up and down,
interim,
man. You can keep it up and down.
okay, in the interim, yeah, I was placed in a predicament. And the funny part about it is, and I'll try to be succinct with this, is and why episode 5 really resonated with me is I was removed from my position because this organization um, took a shot at my character. And as being someone who came from a sordid background, and through the grace of God, and by my own rights, my parents were great. I came from a solid family, a great home. My parents were together my whole life, the majority of my life. Um, but through mistakes of my own, made a lot of these bumps and bruises along the way. Repairing my character and repairing, who I knew that God wanted me to be was my biggest, my biggest challenge. And the fact that I found what I thought was my dream job, everything I wanted, I was fresh out of college when I got this job. The Lord led me here. My wife was relocated here due to her work. So I came here not really wanting to leave Houston, but I just, trusted God, found this amazing job, which I'm still thankful for, learned so much from. And then for them to, do something as simple, what it boiled down to is a budget cut. But trying to justify that took gross shots at my character and stated things about me that just weren't true, that weren't even close to being the truth. And even the people who knew me were just like, nah, I can't see that. Nah, you know, but just blatantly did that to me. Um, I was heartbroken, man. It took me a while to recover. It took me, I mean, you know, I'm still a little burnt about it, to be quite honest. Even though I'm in a great place, I love where I'm at, and God is great. It hurt because I tried so hard. I worked so hard at it, and who knows what the reason were? What the real reason were? I just assumed budget cuts because of COVID and this and that. I was just a cog in the wheel. Um, but these people told me they love me. These people told me that I had a home, that they planned for me to be a part of there for the long haul. They told me these things and then just found a reason to turn their back on me.
Well,
You
bro,
know,
I remember you. I remember being in a lot of staff meetings, man, and you were struggling, kind of like what you were saying, for like knowing your place in the world and your purpose and everything like that. And you really felt like that position was where God had led you to be at. And I don't
yeah,
want to I don't want to discount that. I don't want to say that either one of us wasn't there because God wanted us to be there for some purpose. If anything, just to know each other. But just so you both kind of know a little bit more of my story, and so the audience kind of knows a little bit more of my story as well. So I was saved when I was like 17 at a Baptist church, and didn't really experience a whole lot of the behind the scenes narcissism and stuff like that. And I was pretty open to go to whatever church, so I was never beholden to a church body, and I would hop around to different churches, but still had my home base church, the one I got saved at, and did ministry out of that church, and then decided that I wanted to go to college, And well, before that, I went to another church with a buddy of mine. He was my mentor, and he left for a church in Lakeland, and so I followed him over there, and we did ministry there. And then I decided to go to college, and went to the Baptist College of Florida in Graceville, and that was kind of where I experienced my first kind of church hurt, because I was brought on staff as a youth pastor, youth minister, and when I was there, we did like me and Nikki, we say constantly, we did some great ministry there. We even had a lot of the students open up to us about situations they were having at home. Some situations, were just bad. Like, I don't want to go into too much detail, but they were bad for those kids, and we were ministering to them, and we were like the only adults that they trusted that they could talk to. And then one day, one of the band members, she was the drummer, and she didn't show up on time, and she consistently never showed up on time. And we're like, hey, you need to show up on time, or you're not going to play in the band. And so she didn't show up one day, and so we said, hey, you're not playing this week. And then the next week we were let go because our philosophy of ministry didn't coincide with the philosophy of ministry of the church. And we knew this about this girl, but her family was very well known and established within the church. Like her great grandparents, her great grandparents were buried there in the cemetery and stuff like that. So they had built that church basically. And so it was like, well, hey, you don't want to let our daughter play in the band, we're going to let you go. And so we felt church hurt there, and just the politics of church hurt us, and we actually didn't go to church for like almost a year until some friends invited us to a church up there in Alabama. Then we got back into church, and my faith really strengthened and really grew, and came back, started doing ministry again with local churches as a volunteer position. And I remember telling Nikki, I was like, because I have my degree in film, and I was like, man, like I'd love to do like some kind of movie or something, but like, I don't know, like the Lord's really opening my heart to like work for a church. And that's when I got my job at the church that, me and Josh are kind of, affiliated. Well, we're not affiliated with them anymore, but we were affiliated with them before. And but we had two completely different experiences, man. We had two different experiences, because mine was more theological, like butting heads theologically with upper staff members and pastors there, and yours was like, I felt like, man, every time I looked at you, man, I felt like you were like in their arms.
Dude. It was just like it was like an understated just like feeling of just like you're constantly trying to please someone. You may not necessarily know who it is that day or that week or that, but it's almost like so let me preface this. Love Catholicism, have some very good Catholic friends. But a lot of people associate Catholicism with guilt. And so, preface included, it just always felt like there was just like an overhanging guilt to me that was just like, you were this person before and God led you here. So, you need to work hard and you need to make everyone happy because it's a privilege, for you to be here, for you to be a part of this. It's not the free gift of being saved by Christ. It's a privilege for you to be a part of this club.
I kind of want to chime in because you said something there that really links back to that podcast, but also with the experience that I have had and heard others have, which is the church as a mission and as Jesus's body is a noble and wonderful thing. Church as now almost separately from that, church as an organization and as an entity with an org chart and bosses and pay structures and all of that stuff has a different sort of feel to it. And I do feel like I have heard, and on the podcast it shows that it's like coming into work at a church, it's like, well, at other jobs, you can work your 9 to 5 or we care about your life outside of this. But I've heard a lot of, all right, now that you're in a church, you're serving this wonderful kingdom mission. And so under the guise of saying this is a wonderful kingdom mission, it means you're overworked, or, there's a type of like, well, just be happy you're here. You're potentially underpaid. It's that feeling of like, well, I mean, we're all called to this job.
There's
whereas
no potentially underpaid.
Right.
Definitely underpaid.
Yeah. If you work at Target, for example, and you're like, this is how much I make an hour, and if I go over, I get overtime and that sort of thing. And potentially, this is a bit inflammatory, but I'm saying it on purpose to be inflammatory, is like, I feel like at times your manager at Target will be a little bit more caring about your like work situation than a pastor at a church who is so like focused on the vision of what they're doing, where I feel like a pastor should be caring about your spiritual and emotional health more than the manager at Chipotle.
I would like to, I don't know if it's an anecdote, but I'll tell you a story. So this organization that I came from, I was volunteering for about 8 months before they hired me on to staff part-time. At that time, I was still working at GameStop, great organization, by the way. Love GameStop, support them wholeheartedly. Hopefully that leads into a sponsorship, Matt. Looking for sponsorships for our buddy Matt here. But I was working at GameStop. I was putting in more volunteer hours at the organization than I was working my real job that paid my bills. When they brought me on, at the time, me and my wife were not married yet. We had moved here. We were living together. They would not hire me under the premise of, me living with a woman, living in wedlock. That makes sense. That's an age-old church statute. I understand that. So we got married. It actually ended up being beautiful. We kind of rushed it. It was a little shotgun, but it ended up being beautiful thanks to, God, and us making a covenant with him and honoring him. It was our first anniversary, and there was a big event coming up at the church. And I wanted to take my wife on a cruise. And so I said, we booked this cruise. We're going on this cruise. Her parents are coming. We're doing all of this. And my oversight at the time said, when is that? Because we have this coming up. And if it's the same weekend, I'm going to have to say no. Wait, what?
Yeah.
My first anniversary with my wife, you're going to tell me no? I cannot take this trip with her because we have an event.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that should have been my first red flag, but as the grace of God would have it, 2 things happened. One, it wasn't on the same weekend. It was the weekend before. Then secondly, COVID happened right around that same time. So we ended up not going on the cruise anyway, but it just blew my mind. It's like marriage is the biggest, we push marriage so hard, and your marriage is your biggest priority underneath your relationship to God. And, we want you to honor that. And literally my first anniversary, you told me I couldn't go. I would not be able to go if it fell on the same day as this event. And
do you find that it's tied in when it talks about like priorities, when the idea of like, all right, God first, let's say your marriage, your family, or, if you have kids, that sort of thing. Is it this way when working at a church because the obligations to your job are sort of put up there next to God as like, this is your service to God, so that's why it's ahead of your family. I've also heard that when it comes to maternity leave and paternity leave, for a friend of mine who works at a church where, they had a kid and his wife got great maternity leave through her secular job. And then, he had, hey, you got 3 days from the church. And it's like, now you got to get back to it. And he was like, wait, I thought it was all about family and family life. But what is the reason why we see that disconnect in church?
I think it's because it's not I don't think that priority list is ill-gotten. Like, I think it should be God, your marriage, children, job, and then everything like that. Like, I think it is, but I think what churches end up doing is they place themselves in that God position as well. They're like, God, church, your wife, and it's like, well, no, that's not
how it works.
That's not how it works. Like, the church is not God. And that's a problem that, that's what I think the problem is with that structure within the church setting, is because they place their priority equal to God, and not like God, your marriage, your church, your kids, and stuff like that, or even like your church, after your kids. But I do think if you are placing the priority in God, then church is going to be a priority. But you are going to prioritize your wife and your kids over the church as well, because the thing is you can lead a Bible study at your house. you can praise the Lord at your house. You can do something like this and meet with friends, and study the Bible and not forsake the assembly. But that's the thing, is they mistake the word assembly with church building.
Yeah.
Church organization.
Yeah. And it's very subtle. It's very subtle. And sometimes I don't even think like they are aware that they're doing it. They place the priority not on Jesus and his teachings, but the man. And I felt like this happened a lot, and this is what happened a lot with Mars Hill. The man grew, and the ego grew, and then everybody, all the accolades and everything. And it's very subtle, and it happens in Hollywood a lot. Fame is a very subtle and cunning demon.
But I think
you get accolades and you try to remain humble, but before too long, and especially in the church, sorry, I don't mean to talk over you.
You're fine.
The man starts feeling like, well, I'm a messenger from God, and this is my message, and this is my vision. And my vision and the church go hand in hand. Me and God go hand in hand. And then, Matt said it best. It's very often the church and God, the line closes by, priority. Oh, then the next thing you know, the church and God are equal, and you should, appropriate your time, your family time, and your energy as such. And you get wrapped up in that before you even know what hit you. I mean, we were all so overworked. But
yeah, because you had to work at the church your regular 9 to 5. You also had to be a part of a life group, and then some of us, not me. Well, actually, I did, but some of us were wrapped up in the Bible college, and we didn't get paid extra for that. And then if there was an event, you would have to work that. Now, granted, they did try to, hey, you worked Thursday for 12 hours, so you could take Monday off. They would do stuff like that. They would give you comp hours, but still, your schedule was always out of whack. Like, you were never like, I'm going to go to work at 9, I'm going to come home at 5, and I'm going to spend time with my family, and then we're going to chill out. And again, you're grossly underpaid. By like, oh, I'm making like $3,000, $5,000 less. Like, you're making like 10 to 20 grand less than everybody else that is working in the same industry as you. And and then you, Josh, you can totally attest for this. And then you leave for work from, I'll just talk personal experience here. You leave from work out of your single wide trailer, driving your beater all the way to a big conglomerate city, and you drive up. The pastor has their own personal parking space that even has a gate that closes so nobody else can park there. And then you gather all this equipment, thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment, and take it over to the pastor's house. And the pastor's house is in a gated community with other homes that start at $300,000.
Yeah.
And so like, and here I am forced to live on my in-laws property just so I can afford some type of rent.
Sure. And if I could add, I guess a caveat to that is then you're not talking about the anxiety, the pressure of time limits, you have to get something done in this amount of time. So for me personally, the anxiety, if I went away, for a vacation and I missed a service, you're checking your phone. Oh, does anyone need me? The deadlines. Matt, when we were pulled off of a shoot, me and my tech director at the time, we're pulled off the middle of a shoot for, church Super Bowl, Easter, which were already deadlines and time crunch and trying to get it done. We're pulled off of that to go and assemble this, hundreds of thousands of dollars piece of equipment, and get it to work and get it right and get it under, and you're staying there overtime. I think that night we worked until around 11 o'clock trying to get this equipment to work, did not get it to work. We're not paid overtime for it. And just the anxiety of, some executive pastor coming to you and being like, you guys, you really didn't commit to getting that done. And, that's just a defeatist spirit. If you guys, would have been prayed up, something is off in your prayer life that you guys didn't get that together.
Yeah. And that was where I would line up with a lot of the being called a heretic and stuff, because everything had some kind of spirit attached to it. Everything. Yeah. If it like, so me and at the time he was a youth pastor. He was not a youth pastor when I left. But at the time he was a youth pastor, and so he had me make this video for the youth, and I did, and I had a certain type of music on there, and they were like, it's okay, but like it doesn't have enough bounce to it or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, I can put something else on there, but I really like this music, and they're like, oh no, it's fine. So then, like, I actually show up to Wednesday night to check it out and say, like, okay, let me see what this, let me see how this video plays out with the youth. And they changed the music on their own. And so I was like, bro, that kind of hurts my feeling. Like, look, if it was that big of a deal to you, that you felt the need to take it upon yourself to change the music, you should have just, you were the lead on this project. You were the one asking for this project. You were the client. You should have just told me, like, no, we don't want that music. We want this music. And I would have changed it. But you didn't. You went behind my back and changed it. And this was the response. Bro, you're letting Satan get between us. And I'm like, I was like, no, this is between me and you. You went behind my back because you didn't feel like you could tell me to change it. But that's how it was all the time. There is, if you were afraid of catching COVID, like if you wanted to wear a mask and you wanted, and you didn't feel comfortable coming to work, well, you're just operating in a spirit of fear. I
was bullied. I was not bullied. I mean, no one came and gave me a noogie. But I mean, dude, if I wore this mask, there was a certain executive, take that thing off, take that off. That's stupid. You're wearing that, but take it off, and it's like, hey man, I'm just trying to protect myself and everyone around me. I don't know science. I don't know what this thing is. I'm just trying to be safe. Like, well, you're operating in the spirit of fear, and we're gonna have to pray that out of you. Like,
Yeah, you got to
I'm
go to
Okay,
scared,
wait.
man.
yeah, you
I
got to
have
go
to
to a
rant.
class.
I have to rant for a second.
Go for it.
I feel like, well, first, I feel like I can hear myself echoing in my own mic. I don't know.
You're echoing in mine too.
Oh, really?
Oh, now I hear everyone echoing.
Hold on. You keep talking. I'll try to fix it.
Matt, do some magic.
What about now?
It's like been normal life for you, and it's been like this is what working in a church is. But like, I've never worked in a church in my life. I've never been on staff, but I've like volunteered and served and been involved in like big churches. And like I I don't think this is naive of me, but like a church filled with Christians who serve the same God, who have given their life to the same Lord and Savior, should be the best place to work in the world. Like, if you are a Christian, you should be so encouraged spiritually when you come to work. It should be not about, like, you should be taken care of better than GameStop ever took care of you. Like, it should be the kind of thing where you're getting paid above and beyond what you would get paid at another place, because because people is what a church should value. And it's like, listen, we don't have the best tech, we don't have the best stuff. We actually took a little money away. We didn't get the parking lot repaved because we care about our staff and the people that work at this church. And that when the priorities are different than that, it feels so out of line and out of step with the kingdom of God. It feels out of step with what God wants from us. And the fact that like big churches are doing this wrong really makes me mad, because they should be the groups led by people that have a pastoral oomph about caring, like loving people really, really well. Like the fact that people at a church should feel called by God to love others in a particular way and present, like, it's about other people. And when I feel like a secular work culture, like the toxic culture that like went through America in like the 80s, has like those negative parts have been pulled into the church, and somehow we're like mimicking like Jack Welch like power dynamics. But if anything, like the church should be leading the way and not pulling from, hey, we learned this really cool org chart thing. Like I'm all down with, like, I love leadership stuff and I love hearing all that stuff. But like I feel like the church is moving one direction in these American churches. Sorry, American big mega churches are moving a direction that I even feel like big companies are like getting wise to, about treating their employees with more respect. So I feel like we're seeing like a cross when the church should be leading the way in dealing with employees and like treating them. And if you say as a church, oh, we're all family, oh, it's a big family here, that is a lie. If your actions don't like, it is a terrible lie.
Yeah.
Then I feel like that's what Mars Hill was. It's just like, yeah, we're all family here. We're all family here. But at the end of the day, you're being treated like a cog in a machine and not like a valuable person. Like people should be asking you, hey, spiritually, how are you doing? How can I be praying for you? And not turning your performance review into a spiritual critique to like match the, hey, you're not doing your job, there must be something spiritually wrong with you. That seems so backwards. That's the end of my.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it should be better. I mean, I remember talking to Nikki and saying, if a church calls me, I'm going to go. But that's the trap that we kind of fall into, because what happens is we think we're going to go to a church, and so we're going to be following a mission, and we're going to be on a mission from God, and so I will willingly take a pay cut so that I can work and know that I'm working to do something for Jesus. And that's the trap that we fall into, because then what we do is we undervalue ourselves, we undervalue the work that we do, and we give 110, 200% of what we do in order to spread the gospel for Jesus. And then it turns out, because I think if we were honestly spreading the gospel of Jesus and we were honestly doing kingdom work, it would be worth it. However, what you learn hindsight, or what you learn from, experiencing bad things in the church and experiencing narcissism within the church, is that it's not worth it. Like this, it's not worth it, because I'm not spreading the gospel of Jesus. I am spreading the brand of that particular church. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. The overarching, and I don't know if we haven't gotten here yet, but we're kind of hinting at it. So I think the overarching saddest part, and I think this is really about the American church in general, not just working for a church, but if I had a problem, if I was struggling with something spiritually, you really had no one to go to, with the exception of maybe a handful of people that you really trusted, that you could go to and be like, they would be like, let's help you through this. We're going to pray you through this. You're on your staff. You're so important. There was a genuine fear of, and I just had things that just the residue, I guess you would say, that the world has left on me, and Matt knows, struggling to find my place, being unsure of myself. But all of those things were weaknesses, and they were a spirit, and they were, they weren't something that someone needed to pray me through or love me through. There was no grace. That's what it is. There was no grace.
Yeah.
There was no grace apparent, at all. And it's like, that was grace and mercy are, top three, top two characteristics: grace, mercy, and love. That's God. That's Jesus. And it was absent. It was completely absent. I knew that if I went to someone and said, hey, and this is a story that I tell now, that I'm thankful that I have the freedom to tell now in my current position, that, hey, man, I was an addict. I've been sober for this many years. It's been a while, but, it's something that I'm always going to struggle with. And I need someone to pray with me on it. I need a sponsor. I need someone to pray with me. It's been 4 years. I've been completely sober for 4 years, but I need a sponsor. I need someone to be with me, to pray me through this, to walk me through when I'm feeling weak. I still need that. But the fear is if I went and told somebody that, it'd just be like, oh no, you're one of those.
Well,
You're
it
one
would
of
be
those,
like
and
telling your boss at GameStop, hey, I want to steal video games from the shelves. And it would have that feeling of like, well, I can't tell you that. That's part of my job. As I can't confess to you that I want to steal video games. I feel like there's that tie-in of like your spiritual health also somehow becomes part of your job performance instead of a place to experience more grace.
But also too with the church and this church we're talking about in particular, is there were really great moments. There were times where you're like, man, I feel like this is so much of a family. So it's almost like being a part of a family where like you constantly get abused, like mentally abused by like your dad and your uncle and like all the patriarchs of the house. Like you continually get mentally like gaslit. You constantly get gaslit, to where like they'll dog you to your face and then if you were to bring it up to them, or you bring it up to like your oldest cousin, right? Who's like, you have your uncle says, like to your face, like, you're evil. And then so you go to your cousin and you're like, hey, like, did he mean that? And then they're like, no, he didn't mean it that way. But if he did, you might have an evil spirit attached to you, And so like it was that kind of thing where you would constantly get gaslit, and then like they would make a statement and then make a contradictory statement. And then you're like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Or you would speak up because like, so I was in a position where a lot of my, like a lot of the things that I believed, and I've been a Christian now over 20 years. And so like, though I don't feel like I'm the smartest man in the room, like I'm like the head honcho Christian. I know everything there is to know about our faith and Jesus. Like I know enough to where I have a basic doctrine that I believe. And I have a basic doctrine of the way that I believe that the Bible works and the way that I believe that God works. And sometimes I think that especially within a non-denominational evangelical church, it becomes a little too charismatic. And so I felt, I felt led to be a little bit more boisterous about that, about those opinions. And it would put a target on my back, to where I would feel threatened. Like I felt threatened probably the last 3 years I worked there. I felt like I was going to lose my job at any moment because my belief system wasn't the exact same as theirs. And they would make the statement, we would have a staff meeting. Josh can totally testify for this. We would have a staff meeting every year, and every single time we would have that staff meeting, which they're probably coming up on it close right now because, anyways, I'm trying not to, because of things that are about to happen there. But every year we would have this staff meeting where it was like, and it was all about people have to transition so that the vision can be maintained. And so it's like, if your belief system doesn't follow the ones of the church that the church has laid out, then you are chaff that needs to be tossed to the side.
Yeah.
It really is it's a way like Mark Driscoll had it, where it's us versus them. And it is, you get on, what do you say? You get on the bus, you get run over by the bus. And that sort of celebrity-led culture in megachurches it can be very destructive because, I mean, much like the rest of our country, if your church is just as politicized or just as like everything is the biggest deal in the world and we can't have disagreements on things, then you end up building this sort of monoculture of people that in leadership all think the same thing, kind of just like that woman said in the podcast of like she wished there was men around Mark Driscoll that would challenge him. But it's just you start creating a club of people that all speak and think the same, or people that stay quiet and get out of the way and just do their job and go home. And that's a really rough culture to build, in these bigger churches. I had a question for you guys when it comes to like big churches and kind of celebrity. Is there a way that this can be redeemed in the American church? Like, can churches with big, the Craig Rochelle's, the Furdicks, Andy Stanley, like when you start getting recognizable and you write books, or even like the next tier down where you're known in Tampa or you're known in Chicago or whatever, you're known in your city. Are there guardrails to put in so that you don't rise and fall with the moral failings of one man? What's the answer?
I don't know. And this is just me thinking on a purely like logistical mindset. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a blanket statement. It seems so trite, but it is. At a certain point, it seems to me that I notice with all of these same similar type of structures, the rise and the downfall, is at some point, one person becomes more important than all the other people. And then a shift happens. Um, the paranoia that, Mark Driscoll experienced is stories of the paranoia I heard about, when there was an exodus from this other place. I would say even just, and I don't know if big corporations do this, or I can't remember where I heard this for. I know it's from an economics class, probably high school when we're all so naive. But I would say a shifting of executive pastorate, an executive pastor for a season, maybe, and just to keep the balance of power even, because all these churches have, what would you call it, Matt? A committee of elders. I don't know what you call that, but they have this committee of elders that are supposed to govern these sort of things, but that's not working.
Because they become buddies with the person in power.
Well,
exactly. They all play golf together.
Yeah, well, a lot of these, or they go fishing together. A lot of these, a lot of these elders that were placed in this church that we're talking about were actually staff members, which I thought was a huge problem. Like your eldership should not be staff members. They should not, because that's a conflict of interest.
Sure.
Yep.
But the thing is these elders who were put in place too. The thing that the church we were at lacked the most, and I feel like it's probably still going on today, because I've only been gone from there for a few months. But the thing that they had that they lacked was a consistent vision and a consistent what can I say? Like rules, like boundaries. They didn't set any boundaries up for themselves. And I think that if they would have had a consistent doctrine, if you have a consistent doctrine, a consistent statement of beliefs, and a consistent purpose and vision for that church, then what you do is you set up your elders and you say, "Hey guys, this is the vision of this church. This is the vision of this body of believers. This is our doctrinal statement. This is our bylaws and our constitution and all stuff like that." And you set all these things up, and then what the elders are supposed to do is uphold these things, so that when the pastor goes wackadoo nuts and he starts like, oh, we're going to shift. God told me in a vision that we're going to shift everything that we're going to do,
Right.
And the elders would say, wait a second, this is what this church was founded on, these principles. This church was founded on this vision. And what you're saying now doesn't line up with that vision that we cast at the beginning. And therefore, we're going to have to say no to this. But
and keeping power, like Josh had said, keeping power somewhat from rising up. And it's that ability to receive feedback. And the ability to receive correction is something that needs to take place in the lead pastor and the pastor that's on the screen or whatever, because without the ability to receive feedback and critique and wise counsel, if we're going to get all Christianese with it, the ability to receive wise counsel and listen, that has to be a prerequisite to leading a church, because if you are a type A go-getter personality, like an entrepreneur, I don't think you're going to make a great, you may make a good pastor, monetarily, but I don't think you make what God wants church, like a shepherd or a pastor to be, which is someone who's humble. And humility, as far as a characteristic, needs to be so high up there, because like you said about power corrupting you, I think if a pastor can say, hey, let's say, for example, I don't know anything about your current church, Josh, but it's relatively smaller than where you came from, correct?
Yes.
I would say you almost at that small scale of being hey, we hope to grow big and we hope to reach a lot of people for Jesus. But there almost needs to be like this caution built in, like, hey, me as the pastor, I'm worried about once people know my name, I worry that I'm going to be corrupted and prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I feel like that has to be set up at the very beginning before you get big and before you get notoriety and go like, hey, elder team, like, I need you guys to like give me some tough love if I end up getting too big a head.
Yeah. Even like an example that's not Mars Hill, even some of the most sincere people, you know, a story that broke my heart. Maybe some people saw it before me, but I was in Houston, so maybe I was a little biased. John Gray. You know, this dude
You lost me.
from well, from what it appeared to me, sorry, and I'm sorry, Matt, from what it appeared to me, that this dude was trying his best. You know, I went to go see him on those Wednesday night Bible studies. It really appeared that he was trying to live a certain life with his wife. They had been together forever. You know, we all know the story, not to get too into detail about it. And then as soon as he received his own pastorate, as soon as he, you know, received a certain level, I mean, it was almost immediately that everything went to pot. You know, there were probably seeds of that before. Maybe he wasn't as famous, so we didn't hear about the things. You know, maybe that's the case, and maybe I'm just naive in thinking about it all. But I just remember feeling like, I hope that it doesn't turn out this certain way. I hope to God it doesn't turn out this way. And it did. You know, I'll shift from that, Matt, since I lost you on that one. You know, I think the same thing that happened with, you know, on a bigger scale, Kanye. We all hoped, at least I did, because I was a huge fan of his music. I think the man is a genius. I just prayed. I said, please, Lord, don't let this be a ploy. Like, let him find real Christianity. Let a change in his heart really have occurred. Like, you know, and sometimes it just feels like it's just a matter of time. And it's so sad. It's just a matter of time until the power, the fame, whatever it is, you know, what is your check and balance to compete that? You know, what kind of system can you put in place to compete that? Okay, you're going to be, you know, executive pastor for 5 years. We're going to focus on your vision and we're going to see where it gets us. You know, after 5 years, we're going to go to the Lord, we're going to fast, we're going to pray, and we're going to see where we're at. And it might come a time where we need to rotate a new executive pastor or something. I don't know. You know, I have no idea how to put it together, but it just feels and the more you look into this, the more you see it, you know, Creflo Dollar, TD Jakes, the list goes on and on. Who was the one pastor, Matt, that we always talked about? Super creepy.
Oh, Kenneth Copeland, man.
Kenneth Copeland, like
blowing on COVID to get rid of it,
dude.
But bro, you also have right down the road from this church that we're talking about. You have Rodney Howard-Browne, who, you know, he's a wackadoo nut crazy from South Africa.
Yep.
And the thing is, you have a lot of people who are at this church that in question that we're talking about that are going to that church and think that's an amazing church too.
Yep. And it's, you know, and it's just, you know, how do you combat people? You know, what do you do to get people to recognize Shimmer and recognize the Spirit of God?
I think,
you
so
know,
so I think, and I don't know if I actually answered your question, Nate. So I'm going to kind of try to do both right now. So the Shimmer thing, I think what you do is you have people actually read their Bible.
Because
that's where you're going to get corrected. And that's why during staff meetings, whenever I would have a question, I was like, hey guys, I just want to make sure we're doing this biblically. And that's what would put a target on my back. Not that like I'm saying, hey guys, what we're doing is stupid and it's fake. It was me saying, guys, I want to make sure that what we're doing is biblical. That was that was the first statement that put a target right on my back. You know,
and all it was, you know, you just saying, hey, I just want to make sure that we all have the proper translation of this and we're all receiving this in the appropriate way. Where is the harm in that? You know, sorry to cut you off. Please continue.
Yeah, but what it was a step up. It was a step up against leadership, you know, and that's the way that they saw it, and that's not the way I saw it. I saw it was like, hey, I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure that I'm following the Bible consistently and properly. And I think that's the thing, is when you have people that are driven by emotion, and so what they do is they go to churches that are driven by emotion. Rodney Howard-Brown's thing is he's big into the laughter, crying, falling on the floor, falling on the ground, and that's what people chase, is that emotional high that they get from these experiences, instead of like, hey, when I walk out of a church service, do I know anything more about the Bible, or do I know, or have I felt good? So like, what, and that's one thing I hate when people tell me, because people know that I'm a Christian. Like, I'm very outspoken that I'm a Christian, and people will tell me, oh, Matt, I went to church the other day and it made me feel so good. I'm like, well, that's not what church is for.
No,
churches are there to make you feel good.
It's a place of correction. You're not going to feel good all the time. There are times where you need to be corrected, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And, but the Bible instructs us to walk a certain line. Like, you might as well just go to, to a life coach or something. If, that's how you want to feel all the time. That's not what church is for, though.
Yeah. And if you walk out of that service and you say, I don't think I know anything more about the Bible than I did walking in, then that's not the church for you. You shouldn't be there. You need to walk out of that church immediately.
Well, we can also go even further into what a church should be. And if it really just becomes going to hear a speaker speak and not connect with the other members of your church and not fellowship with the other people in your church, you're also not really being part of a church. You're just going to hear a really cool speaking engagement.
So that's the big. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine. So that was going to be my point, as far as like, well, how do we combat this Americanized church? Is once a pastor feels that he needs a bodyguard, once the pastor feels
that doesn't shake hands with the church afterward,
doesn't shake hands with the church afterward, one that doesn't go and visit people in the hospital unless they're like a really high ranking member of the church. When you have a pastor of a church who establishes life groups, not so that you have supplementation throughout the week, but so that at the life group stage is where you get your ministry from, and you should not go up any higher than that. That's when when you're not doing ministry locally, and it's actually a problem, I think. If we just to touch on politics a little bit, is I'm a very big proponent of localism. The more local your body is, the more effective you are in your community. And so when and that's the problem, is we have so many churches that want to reach out globally instead of locally. And so they've completely dismiss and forget about their local congregation because they're on a bigger mission from God. But the thing is if you are a true pastor and you're pastoring the flock that you will have members of that flock go in and out of your congregation, and they're going to be the ones that go from Tampa to Lakeland, and from Lakeland to Orlando, and from Orlando to up to Jacksonville, and from Jacksonville into Georgia, and then they're going to go out and spread the world. But you are still going to be the minister of the gospel in whatever city or town that you're in. And I think that's the thing, is localism and keeping it inward. Like I'm still a big proponent, even when I was there at the church in question, I was still a big proponent of like, man, like this is kind of too big. Like we might want to think about downsizing, and even the campuses that they have that go out, because the campuses that they would have go out, they would want to build those campuses as big as possible. But why not just kind of like the Catholic Church does? You have your big church, but then you have parishes that are within the community that the church,
neighborhoods.
Your neighborhoods. Yeah.
I want to say this, and then I have to kind of say this, and then I have to go here and leave you guys for a second.
Sure.
But I want to run an idea past you, and
Go
this
for
is
it.
probably a naive idea, but this is my thought. What if the local church was led by not a type A personality, but a type B personality? That a pastor who did not get up on the stage very much at all, maybe wasn't a great public speaker, and that pastor was caring for not just the flock of the church, but caring for the staff, caring for the people that work there, doing hospital visits, and leading through a really humble, loving way. And then, if you wanted someone who is your teaching pastor, who is able to give a great message or to reveal the truths in Scripture, that person is very clearly under the responsibility of, I know that's kind of like what an executive pastor is supposed to be, but like really focusing in a church on the heart of the pastor being for the people there and for the people that work there. And that person is so against fame and so against like power, and maybe is the person who is kind of like, we need to care for the people we have here. We don't need to always try to get bigger. And that person is keeping in check the ambition of other people on staff. Because when you have talented speakers and type A and very like really get things going, Enneagram 3, like, let's do this, let's go. I feel like when that person and people group lead, you kind of lose. In some ways, I want someone in the church that tries to make things unsexy and kind of is like, hey, it's okay if this is going to be a little bit more boring and not exciting, because it's within the quiet and within the margin and within like the moments of a staff meeting where God can really, like, we give him room to work. And like, I feel like that kind of personality, I want them to be like, have so much power in the church that they're able to say to the other people quietly and in the room, like, hey, you're being too caught up in how many people attended this week. It's not about that.
Yeah.
So I feel like putting that person, and a person who is humble and just like, I'm just caring for other people, and not the person who you see in front of the camera or who stands up in front of the pulpit, who has great power because they speak to the people, but necessarily what they say in the podcast, that his skill outpaced his character.
Yeah.
For Mark Driscoll. And I feel like that we need to counteract that.
I don't know if you want to go first, Josh.
Yeah, so I'll be as quickly as possible before you have to go. I think, that's a great idea, but part of it too is someone has to set a precedent for that, because all of these pastors are becoming popular because that's what people want. They want the good-looking guy, the beefcake up there who looks good in a beard, or if he shaves, who's
skinnier jeans.
Let's go. Yeah, we're all shades of brown. They want that guy up there, and people get caught into this charismatic sort of leadership, and again, it's subtle, it's deceptive. People don't want to go to church and be bored. They want to go and they want to feel good, and they want to look at a pastor, that looks good, and then also that you have these moments with. I'm sure if you go to Elevation and you pull some random person aside and they're like, tell me about Pastor Furtick, how do you feel? Well, there's this moment. We were walking down the hall and he smiled at me and said, "Hey, Josh, how you doing?" And it's like, he knew my name. Oh my God, he knew my name. It's amazing. We all had these moments with our previous pastor that, again, it's that shimmer that just kind of make you feel like, And it's like, dude, I'm a member of your staff in your church that you're the pastor of. Of course you should know my name. Of course you should know why I'm here and what I do. You know, did Jesus have, and I mean, I know it's only 12 disciples, but I mean, it's just the thought process of course, why would you ever be that big that you have all these people in your building and you don't know who they are and what they do?
Right.
But it draws numbers, and it very quickly, the success of a church isn't what we do in the community, how we lead the community, how effective we are. It's how many people were online, how many people logged on and watched us online, how many people were in the sanctuary live this season, this service.
And then
Someone,
how many local politicians do I know, and how many
sure.
school board people are on my elder staff?
Yeah, I was
Oh,
on a
man.
call with, a senator or the president with 100 other pastors,
Mm-hmm.
I was
that
I was
kind of
the
thing.
I was the one you heard at 35 minutes in.
I've
Yeah.
shaken Huckabee's hand.
Yeah. So this was. So I think the problem with your frameworking, Nate, is that it still has in mind that idea of church that we have right now, which is you have a building that you gather in and you hear somebody speak and give the word, and then the ministry kind of happens behind the scenes, where
Yeah.
like I've read a little bit about the history of like synagogues and stuff, and I think if we go to this idea of like a synagogue style local church, that I think it could be better. I don't think it could be perfect. But what they would do is you would have like, let's say you would have the pastor of the church, you would have the synagogue leader, and what they would do is when people would gather in, they would notice somebody new and they would say, "Hey, brother, I appreciate you coming and being in our being in our midst today. Would you mind actually reading the word today? We're going to be reading out of Isaiah 53, and we'll set you up in the back with the scroll, and when it's your time to come up and read, you'll do the reading." And then they would have somebody. Then they would have somebody else. Hey, hey, brother Nate. I was wondering if you'd be okay leading us in worship today. And then that would be the thing. And then you would have a rabbi that would come in. A lot of them would be traveling. Some of them would be the rabbi of that church, but they would be the one who actually took the reading and then expounded on it and taught in the synagogue. That's why Jesus taught in the synagogue so much, and Paul taught in the synagogue, because they would just roam around and be at the synagogue, and somebody would say, "Hey, do you want to give the word of the day?" And it's like, "Sure."
Yeah, I got some things to say. Right.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think what I'm saying is a pivot where probably the American church in a lot of ways needs a new reformation and a new, like a very different idea, and away from the consumeristic church.
It's happening a lot. Yeah, it's happening a lot with these deconstructionists. I see a lot of that on TikTok. Is you have a lot of people who are deconstructing organized religion, and in turn, a lot of them deconstruct God in general, and then they kind of become more hippity dippy, and they're like, oh, everything is God, But I still think that there is a good about deconstructing the church in itself.
Yep.
I think
All
that's
right,
actually
guys. Well, I have to run.
Yeah, man.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, man. Always good chatting with you, brother.
Good talking, Josh. We'll talk later.
See you guys, man. See ya.
Later.
All right, Josh. Hold on.
You and me, man.
You and me. Now, the thing is, you don't have a camera, bro. It's just me.
Yeah, I do. So I changed the picture because I can't see what you see. So I don't know if you're seeing me. It's just like a blank screen for me. Are you seeing me?
I could see you.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I could see you.
I can't see what is on the screen, so that's why I cut my camera off. So okay, if I'm good, then yeah.
Oh, you can't see, you can't see me?
I can see you, but I can't see like me. I don't know how it looks. So I didn't want it to look like that.
You look good, man.
Okay.
The thing is like you can I got you on my stream as like up and down, so that's why I was like, you can just keep it that way.
Okay. Cool.
But hold on a second, because we might have a surprise guest walk up in here. Hold on. I'm gonna keep him a surprise. But hopefully, I'm just gonna send him an invite, and if he comes, he comes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Well, hold on. Let's see. But Josh, I need to tell you the story I was telling you about.
Yeah, please.
It's so hard. It's so hard to speak anonymously, and I know that most people have already figured it out.
I mean, I'm
now.
sure they gathered. You know, it is very hard to try and leave people's names out, but
right. But at least we can say like, oh, we didn't name names.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't say anything inflammatory. I could have been talking about anybody.
Oh man. All right, hold on a second. All right, so if this person hops on, then I'll have to like pause and try to do some more finagling of the screens and stuff like that. But I wish Nate wouldn't have hopped out so soon, because I had a lot of comments that were like, when Nate kind of went into his diatribe of what he thinks a church should be, a lot of people were like, "Amen," preach, Nate.
Yeah. Sure. I would have loved to, expound upon it, respond to him a little bit more as well. Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of things that once we get done with this conversation that we're going to be like, man, I wish I would have said that.
Yeah, it's always like that. I still think when we did the Avengers podcast on Movies on the Side, when we did that, I still think of things to this day. I'm like, I didn't bring up this. I'm so stupid. I still, like, literally just the other day, I'm like, man, why didn't I talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah.
Anyways,
well, let's go. Hold on, just for 1 second. Let's go off on a Marvel tangent.
Okay.
How excited are you for Kang the Conqueror?
So I'm again, I'll try and keep it succinct. I can go on forever. Here's my biggest takeaway from Kang the Conqueror, and it's not necessarily about Kang himself. Mm-hmm. It's them opening up the multiverse the way that they have. As a fan of Marvel Comics from a young child, there are so many stories that even to see Avengers on the big screen, when the first Avengers came out, to me it was like, wow, I never thought that this would happen. And now they're opening up the multiverse. Loki was so wacky, and WandaVision was so out there. And, it's just the excitement of, it's really like Kang. Like when the spoiler alert, if you haven't finished it, but when he got to that point, he's like, I don't know what happens anymore. Up until this point, Infinity War, everything, you can kind of know, you're kind of like, okay, I've read this before. Like, I know how this is going to turn out. I don't know how they're going to do it or what characters, but I kind of know what's going to happen here. It's literally like, I have no idea what stories they're going to tell.
Yeah, I was actually thinking it'd be great, like, if they did do where you had different Kangs that they fought. It wasn't necessarily Kang the Conqueror. So, like, because Fantastic Four isn't a part of this phase, right?
I don't think so. There's a Fantastic Four movie planned for sure, but I think it's like at the very end of this phase or the beginning of the next phase.
Yeah, there's no way that they're going to fight Kang the Conqueror this phase, because I mean, it took Thanos 3 phases,
10 years.
Yeah. So like if they do that same thing when they introduce Fantastic Four, I was like, it would be great if they introduce Fantastic Four when they fight was it Rama Tut?
Yeah, and that's the thing about Kang. There's so many versions of there's Kang the Conqueror, there's Immortus, there's Rama Tut, there's like 5 different versions of the actual Kang the Conqueror. There's all these, just like the guy talked about, there's all these different variants. Like, that would be amazing. The Fantastic Four versus Rama Tut. But that's the joy that I'm feeling. The fact that they could tell this story, and it's not out of, they've opened up everything. Like, they could tell that story if they chose to.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. That's the most amazing part to me. Like, that's like, wow. It's not going to be so linear. It's not going to drive in one direction anymore. There are all these branches and all these ways that they could take this. Like, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. No one's done it better. So yeah. I'm geeking. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Not yet. Nobody's done it better yet. I don't think DC is going to catch up. I mean, I think if they wanted to catch up, they should have just kept Zack Snyder on, because he did his. Yeah. Did you watch his version of Justice League?
Absolutely,
and I loved it.
It was incredible, and obviously for the reasons he stepped away, of course. But it's like they were so impatient to get it done, and I just think I was watching it, and I'm like, why wouldn't you wait for this?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you figure something out and just wait for this, But they were rushing, trying to keep up with, like, Usain Bolt. Like, he's gone already. Like, your best bet is second place. Marvel's got it. They're gone. They've built this the way, just take a step back. But, like, did you see Wonder Woman 84?
No, I haven't seen Wonder Woman 84. That's the thing, is I'm the kind of person that, like, if I hear something is garbage, I'm not going to watch it. Like, so me and Nikki, because it's August now, so I'm in Halloween phase, which is another thing. I can celebrate Halloween because I'm not at the
dude. I was so happy for you. I was thinking about that. I was like, dude, I saw you posting, like, the store, the Halloween store, and I'm like, dude, this is Matt's favorite. Like, this is awesome. Like, I was so happy for you for that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But so wait, where was I going with this?
You said you and Nikki were, and then you said we're getting ready for Halloween.
So we're getting ready for Halloween, so we're starting to watch, like, some horror movies and some Halloween movies.
Sure.
And we were talking about watching the Haunted Mansion movie, because the Haunted Mansion is, like, one of my favorite Disney rides, and they made that movie with Eddie Murphy, and I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to taint my view of, the Haunted Mansion. Oh, hold on, we got our special guest here. Hold on, let me get your camera up.
I see it.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, hold on.
What's up?
Where are you at here? Active speaker. Maybe this is it, or no?
Do I sound okay? This is the last minute.
Yeah, man. I can hear you fine. Yeah, you sound fine.
Yeah, awesome. You sound good. Hold on, I'm getting your. Everybody is just like, who is this mystery person? And I have to get, like, all of your titles up and stuff.
Oh my gosh, you don't be that fancy.
No, I do. What's your?
It's an occasion.
What's your Insta handle?
It's Jordan_Bean.
Jordan_Bean.
Yep.
Boom! Now you're up. You are live with all of us.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh,
it's good
man.
to be here.
Yeah. So, Jordan, after hearing all the perspectives that so far, have you been listening to the podcast?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So, what's your perspective on the podcast so far?
Well, I haven't
not this podcast for people who are just tuning in, but a podcast called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
Yeah, so I haven't finished it. I'll preface with that, but I have listened to, I'm on the third episode right now.
Okay.
So
they just came out with an episode today.
Did they? Okay, awesome. Yeah. So it's extremely eye-opening. A lot of what you guys have already said already. No one really knows. I was also kind of in the same experience with you guys. So it's really eye-opening, and it kind of you get to reminisce a little bit of what you hear from that church, and how a lot of churches are also struggling with the same problems and same structural issues of what we kind of experienced firsthand with the three of us. So that's super eye-opening. I want to first off say, like, the podcast is fantastic. If you guys haven't listened to it, whoever's watching, definitely take the time to download it, subscribe to it, listen to it. It's really, really well done. Kudos to, was it Christianity Today?
Christianity
Yeah.
Today. Yeah.
Right. They're the ones who produce it. And they just did a fantastic job just collecting all of the material and everything that kind of goes behind what the podcast embraces. And yeah, it's really, really awesome. So
It's
definitely
really,
do that
yeah, it's really good investigative journalism. Like
for sure.
I feel like I am listening to a Christian based like 2020.
Yeah. That's a good way to
Sure.
put it.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, that's all I have right now from it. I mean, I just think it's really insightful. So my background, I don't know if you guys want me to explain that now, but
Yeah, go for
so
it, man.
I currently am working in a church, which I know Josh, you're in the same boat too now, working at a different church. And my experience now with the church that I'm in has like vastly different to the prior church that I was in. So that is super eye-opening, knowing that the structure of the quote unquote megachurch can be successful and can be honoring and provide grace and all the things that you guys have been talking about thus far on the chat with Nate. I was listening in a little bit to you guys, so yeah, that's really cool. So I'm currently located in Fort Worth, Texas, and being a part of our production team here is really eye-opening too, especially with this past season and COVID, but also understanding the support behind our elders. I know you guys were mentioning elders a little bit. The way that we operate as far as our elders go is it's all church congregation elder-led. So and the proper way, I think, honestly, is these members have been a part of the church for years. They know the DNA of the church. They know the vision of the church. We recently had a head lead pastor change like 2 years ago, and it was really the pastor that had been there just wanted to retire, and they made a change from one of the pastors at the previous campus came in, younger guy, and so he's also freshly new to this position. And so as far as when it comes to elder led, a lot of the decisions that the church that I currently work at that they make are all based off of that elder team. So they're really envisioning, okay, this is what our church DNA, our vision, right? This is what we feel are the best steps, to follow to make sure our church thrives and also, ultimately spreads the gospel through within our community. So just wanted to point that out. I thought that was really good what you guys were talking about prior to that. So
Yeah. So just so nobody thinks I'm an unchurched swine.
that's okay.
Because I'm not a part of a congregation right now, and
Right.
I actually don't plan to be. Me and Nikki have kind of been burned too much by and Jordan, I actually applied at your church.
Yeah.
And I declined it because I read through your guys' doctrinal statements, and there's some stuff in there I don't agree with, and so I was like, I'll be butting heads with people, and I don't want to do that.
Right. Totally. That's for the best.
Yeah, and so we stayed here in Florida, and we actually go to a Bible study every Sunday. So that's kind of where I'm getting my church from is with that group of people. We meet. There's only probably like six of us, 6 or 10 of us that just meet in a home, and we just we go through the Bible and discuss different themes and try to do our best to understand the Word of God and pray for each other and stuff. And that's kind of where we're at with our church experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's awesome for you. And I'm glad that, because I know someone who's hungry for the Bible and biblical and learning more about the Bible. But I think that's kind of a little bit of the tragedy in all of this is that there are more people just like you that are just like, dude, I'm burnt out too much. I just can't do it. I'm going to look for an alternative method to seek God. I got to find something different to seek God. And I know so many people that I want to say worked for this previous organization that don't anymore, that I've come in contact with, that are really just like, you know what, man, I just think I'd be better with a regular 9 to 5. I don't think I want to work for a church again. If I had the opportunity, I probably wouldn't, you know, and I got to tell you the honest to goodness truth. When I signed up to like work for this church to help out, my intentions were just to help. My intentions were just to, you know, lend any sort of, you know, expertise, using the term loosely, to this church that I could. And, you know, my pastor being a friend of mine now, you know, just kind of like, hey, man, I really need your help. And I literally was like, yeah, I mean, sure, dude, you know, and that's the tragedy in all of this. Like, the church is, you know, Jordan, we've grown up in the church. You know, Matt, even though you've been a Christian for so long, you still have a long experience in the church. And we're all just coming together because of being burnt by this one particular organization. And it's happening to so many people. And that's the greatest tragedy of all, that it's like, man, you know, I want this. I'm seeking this. I'm seeking something spiritually. I'm looking for it, but I can't find it because of the stinking people getting in the way of it.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's an organization that you're going to go to that's going to be void of that.
Yeah.
Josh, I know the church you're going to now is a great church, man. We all know the pastor there. I actually shared this podcast that we're talking about now with him, and specifically episode 3. And I was talking to him about it, and he actually thanked me for showing it to him, because he said, man, this makes me want to put guardrails up for myself to make sure that this doesn't happen to me. You know, and that's the humility I think we were talking about, is that you have a lead pastor who's so humble, who says, you know what, this could happen to me. And so I need to go ahead while I have a clear mind and place these things in front of me that are going to keep me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So one thing I wanted to do, guys, is I wanted to play a clip from. It's my favorite episode, but you guys haven't listened to the current episode?
I haven't.
No, I haven't. The newest one, no. It was episode 6.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it yet.
So the majority of the conversation is actually with the video producer, and they talk to the video producer who is really close with Mark Driscoll and stuff. And there's a story there's a story he tells. This isn't the clip I'm going to play. I'll key that up before I play it. But in this today's episode, he talks about like going to I can't remember the name of the country or whatever, but it's like a third world biblical country or whatever. And they drive, and so like he said, we lugged around all this equipment, and we went and we were going back to the hotel, and and hold on a second. And we passed by this great resort, and it had like every room had its own private pool. You know, like all like this grandiose idea of what a hotel should be. And then Mark got out of the limo and said, "All right, guys, see you later." And then they all went to this like crappy flea-ridden hotel. You know, they had to like go and dump footage and stuff like that and work. And like one guy, the guy that they're interviewing the whole time, he said that he had to be changed out of 3 different rooms because his allergies were just acting up so bad. You know, and then you have Mark Driscoll, who's up in a hotel and stuff, you know, like a really fancy hotel.
Yeah.
Of course.
But the clip I want to share is from episode 3, and it's actually it's the one that resonated with me the most. And it's where it's a lady of the church, and she was being asked by other women in the church, like, hey, how's it feel to work so closely with Mark Driscoll? And the only thing she said was like, well, I feel like he would benefit from having men surround him that would challenge him.
I remember, yeah.
And that was all
yeah.
she said. That was all she said. And so then she was called into Mark Driscoll's office. So let me play this clip. Let me know if you guys can hear it too.
Okay.
Hold on.
It was much smaller than Mark's, and we were almost knee to knee, all three of us. And there was this immediate sense of, for me anyway, intimidation. I
got 2 audio engineers here and
no.
a video guy.
And I've never experienced in my life up to that point that kind of rage emanating from anyone. And so I sat down and he said to me, do you know why you're here? And he said, you're being accused of heresy. And Mike, I just lost all sense of myself, other than this kind of sound and almost feeling of rushing water through my body. I was just in shock. And I said, what? And he said, you're being accused of heresy because you've said that you don't trust the leadership in this church. And really, what you've said could destroy this church.
Let's make sure our terms are clear. To be a heretic involves some key denial of the Christian faith. So, in response to Karen suggesting that having a few older, wiser men around might be a good thing, she was accused not of insubordination or disrespect, but heresy.
All I knew about heresy.
All right, that's all I want to play of that clip.
Right.
Yeah.
But you guys know me very well. And so you guys know, like, when you heard that clip, I don't want to try to make it all about me. I don't want to be a narcissist. But like, did I enter your minds at all?
A little bit. Just now, at least.
Well, I remember the one incident that you told me about. So obviously, that popped into my mind. But it was very familiar overall. Very familiar, like eerily familiar. Maybe not directed at my person, like me, myself, but I've heard stories of like this rage, and then also, definitely you being called a heretic, spirit of Absalom, and things of that nature. It's definitely like, dude, like I knew people in less than 6 degrees that went through the same exact thing. Like crazy.
Right.
Yeah. So Jordan, I don't know if I've told you the last encounter I had at the church in question. I know, Josh, I haven't told you. I think the encounter you're talking about, Josh, is the one about like when they were praying over demonic spirits, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to make sure we're doing what the Bible says."
Yeah.
But so the last encounter I had with the pastor of this church in question was at a staff meeting, and so the staff meeting was going really well, and the staff meeting was very much celebrating the church's accomplishments. Celebrating the fact that the church actually got out of this spirit of dissension, where like everything was, they had just gotten over, I guess, the split that happened, and the pastor of the church in question was even like, well, you'll never forget it; it'll always be there, and so, but the majority of the staff meeting was very positive. And so I had actually started to feel as though like, man, this church is where I think Jesus is calling me. Like, I feel like Jesus is telling me, oh man, I can hear myself. Hello? Okay. No. But I felt like Jesus is calling me to stay here. Jesus is like, God is this church is doing great things. And this was only a few months ago, guys. This is only a few months ago. And so then the microphone was kind of open to staff, like to, hey, share whatever the Lord is pressing on your spirit, share it. So what I felt like the Lord was pressing on me was, I have a friend who just got baptized in the Orthodox faith. And so what they do is they present themselves to the Orthodox Church, and then the priest there, they'll set up a ceremony that they do. But during the ceremony, they take anointing oil and they anoint the person who is dedicating themselves to the Orthodox Church. And it is a picture of the apostles. They would anoint people into the body, and so basically you're placing yourself under the authority of the Orthodox Church is what they're doing.
Right.
And they say that this is a ceremony that they pass down from generation to generation. And so I was thinking about this, and I read the scripture where Paul talks about anointing Timothy, and placing Timothy under his teaching. And so I felt like the Lord was telling me, Matt, I want you to place yourself under the authority and leadership of the Crossing Church. And so I want you to get anointing oil from somewhere and ask Pastor Greg to anoint you. And you place yourself under his authority and disregard any teachings that you have gathered that go against the Crossing Church. So this was the point I was at, right? And so I asked another pastor on staff, like, if we're not bottle of anointing oil, because I knew he would have it. And he did. He had a little vial of it. And so I took it, and the microphone came to me, and I stood up. And the first thing I said was, because we had just had this big healing conference, and you guys know how I feel about healing. It's very, it's very contentious with me. I'm like, I don't know if it's like I believe in healing. I just don't believe in healing the way it's being done. And so, but this healing conference kind of made me a little bit more like, maybe this is the way that God works, and I just haven't experienced it yet. And so I was talking about that, and I was talking about how, I've battled with cessationism, this idea of cessationism, which is basically where you don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit and you don't believe in miracles anymore. That's what cessationism is. And so, I was kind of talking about my struggle with cessationism and how, the conference was good for me. And I was trying to lead up into this whole thing. I felt like the Lord was pressing on my heart. And then the pastor stops me and he says, would you be willing to repent? And so in my head, I'm like, well, I've never been a cessationist. So yeah, sure. Why not? Right. I repent of cessationism.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he was like, no. And he walks up to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, do you know what's happening here? What is the Lord saying right now to you? And I didn't hear any, I stopped and I'm like literally asking the Lord, well, what are you saying here?
Right.
And I didn't hear anything. But I still felt like you have to say what I told you to say earlier. Right. And so I said, I feel like I need to honor the Lord and share the original word I have. And then I was told this, and this is all over handheld microphones in front of everybody. Like all of this whole exchange is happening, right? And on the microphone, the pastor says, you can't share a word if you're not under the covering. Sit down.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
And so I was so I was like, and so I gave the microphone back and I gave the vial of oil back. And when I sat down, I feel like the Lord spoke very clearly to me. And he said, see, even when you were ready to place yourself under the authority and leadership of this pastor, he would
Right.
he would not have accepted it.
Mm.
Yep.
And
Wow.
yeah, and so finally, then after the staff meeting, the pastor comes to me and he says, and this is off microphone. The pastor comes at me and says, there's no condemnation here, no condemnation.
What do you
And
call it?
so then I said, can I share what I felt like the Lord was telling me? And he was like, yeah, go ahead. And I told him all this stuff, about the Orthodox Church and how like I was going to ask him to anoint me, and I was going to disregard all other beliefs that didn't fall in line with the Crossing Church.
Right.
And I just named
Wow.
the church, but whatever. But I was going, but that didn't fall in line with the church.
They know.
They know,
Everyone
but like still,
knows.
like I would cast it off, whatever. And then he said, well, that's not wrong. That's not wrong. But if you want me to anoint you, Matt, I'll do it right now. But, and this is the thing. Then he said, but if you want to have your own anointing, we'll bless you and we'll give you the resources you need, and you can go off and get your own anointing. And in my heart, I'm like, I don't want my own anointing. Like, I don't want my own church.
Yeah,
that's not what I want. Like, that's not what I want.
Right.
I want to serve God, and I want to serve him in truth, and so, but then he said, but Matt, you are placing yourself under a lot of unbiblical teachings. And that was it. That was like that was one of the last conversations I had with that pastor. The very last conversation I had with him was actually very like, I was like, hey, I wish you, like, we actually met, like I saw him at a gas station. I pulled in and I was like, it was my last day at the church. And I was like, hey, I just, want to tell you guys that I love you guys, and that I really hope that, you guys continue, that you guys succeed, and there's no hard feelings. Which,
Right.
Feels like a lie now, because like there is a lot of hard feelings.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of
Oh,
hurt.
I feel like there's a lot of hurt, like you just said. It's like not showing, well, not saying that it's not hard feelings, like you said, would be a lie, but but I think definitely for you and for Josh and I too, there's just a lot of hurt there, and it's something that continually for us, and then this kind of relates back to the podcast too, for a lot of people at Mars Hill, and I know for us in our situation, I don't know how you guys are dealing with it, but there's so many instances where there's like compare and contrast for me, at least now working within a church again, and for me too, it's reminding myself I don't have to be afraid to do this, or I don't have to be afraid to say this, and and that kind of thing. Even my wife, sometimes I'll come home early from a work day just because I have the luxury of doing that sometimes, thank God. But my wife says, are you going to get in trouble for that? Are you sure you need to talk to somebody? Because that was always the insecurity of knowing that you might get reprimanded for something. And I loved what Nate was saying previously. I even commented in the chat, but previously what he was saying about the Christian church should be the best work environment, right, to work in, right? Ideally, like, it should be the best work environment.
Yeah.
If we're basing everything off of this thing that we call a Bible, I have 3 of them actually right here in front of me. if we're basing, our vision, our ideology of this particular community around this what we now call a church, right? If we're basing everything around this biblical teaching, ideally in the long run, we should have a very wholesome and exciting experience to be working. Not only that we're working for people around us who have the same vision, right, and the same drive and the same push to want to serve, but we're serving our God as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that like I struggled a lot, especially, leaving the church that we just mentioned and coming here now. It's, I've struggled a lot with like, where do I fit in? Where do I put myself within, where God is calling me, because it was hard, because it was, for us at least, we were pushed really, really, really hard to the point of breaking, to the point of where there is hurt, like Matt was mentioning. And I know, Josh, you've given some examples as well, but to the point where now we've gotten to, you know, insecure about our prior experience. I would like to think when I leave somewhere, I leave on good terms, and I don't leave in there's like a cloud over me, and I felt like with my prior experience and working in a church, there is still that constant cloud over me in my previous experience, and it just stinks. So I don't know if anybody else want to expand on that. But.
Well, I just to piggyback off of what Jordan was saying, especially since we work so close together, I just feel like now, even though leadership does everything in their power to make me aware that it's not the case, there are so many scars and bad work habits and anxiety, I guess, attached to and so much pressure that was placed on us at a time that now I place on myself, because even though I wasn't there only like 2 years, the scars are still I'm still healing from all of that pressure, all of that overwork, like coming home and like my wife telling me like every day you came home you were either mad or you were crying. Like every day you came home, you felt like you had failed at something or what you had done wasn't good enough. And these people who have been so open and outgoing to me and open their arms to me at this new location, I still struggle to find my place because of what the last place did to me. And we're all talking about the same place, but what the last place did to me. It's hard, and I struggle with it to the point where my pastor has talked to me several times, and you guys know my pastor, but he's literally told me several times, he's like, dude, I was there. I know what you went through. This is not that. Like, we're not going to do that to you. But he says, I understand. Like, I'm still working out stuff myself. So I can only imagine what you're still working out. And it's just like, wow, dude, a church, a industry or not this organization, but an industry that I've been part of literally my whole life. My mom is an evangelist, like a full collar pastor, that this one place over a short period of 2 years did so much damage to me that, just the confidence of doing my job that has nothing to do with the church. I went to school for this, like I'm a professional. I went to school for this. I know what I'm talking about, but they took all of that confidence out of me so that me just functioning in my job, never mind the church part, just me functioning in my job. It's always a question in my mind. It's always rolling around in my mind. Like, am I right for this? Am I doing the right thing? Like, my confidence is shot. Long story short, I'm working on it, but it is shot.
Great. I have a question for you guys, if you don't mind, Matt.
Yeah, go for it.
This
is my podcast.
If someone out there is listening to this and they're going through maybe some of the same experiences that we've been talking about here, maybe it be with the church, maybe it not, right? Maybe it just be with an organization or a company or something that they work for and they're not being treated, because that's really what I'm listening to Mars Hill podcast, and it's a story of one guy with too much, right? And he's abusing that power, I think. And that's not just in the church world. And I want people to understand that. And I know a lot of people understand that.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately a lot of people don't realize that it does happen in the church world, actually more frequently than you think.
Yeah.
You know, but my question is, you know, if there's somebody out there that's experiencing that, what would you say to them to maybe either guide them through their next stage, to maybe give them some confidence and encouragement to say, hey, like, you can make it another day? I don't know if you guys have anything for that.
Man, if somebody came to me and they told me that they were in a situation and it was clear that they are under the leadership of a narcissist, I would probably tell them, bro, I would get out of there, because that's what I did.
Right.
Like, I got out of there. But I did the right. Now, one thing I would say is, like, don't burn bridges. You know, don't
Right.
like just leave and leave them high and dry. Be the better person. You know, be the better person, and because they fired so many people.
Yeah.
Over stupid things, you know, over stupid things that where those people could have been coached a little bit more, you know, or maybe given more realistic goals. But they would just fire people at the drop of a hat, you know. I don't know why I didn't get fired sooner. But I gave them I gave them a 2 weeks notice, you know, but I also like set them up for success so much that like my last week there was me creating training videos for the next video producer.
Yeah.
You know, so I left that organization that I was hurt by, like hurt really bad by, hurt so much that like I questioned my own faith so many times.
Totally.
But I was still like, I am going to reflect Jesus as much as I can. And I am going to set them up for success. You know, because I mean, like, we had all the passwords, bro. We could have like deleted everything that they had.
Sure. Yeah.
Matt,
don't say that. Don't say that.
You know, but we didn't. But we didn't. You know, we didn't. We set them like, or because you guys got canned. You know, and so you guys left very abruptly.
I would say something a little bit different when you finish, and I'll be short with it. But go ahead. I want you to finish your.
Yeah. So, but
your answer.
I don't know, man. If somebody came to me and they said they're in a place where they're, you know, they're working underneath a narcissist, I would say, look, keep doing like set up a plan to get out. Keep working there and and get through the day, but start putting out your application to other places.
Yeah.
And put out your application to trailer sales.
Sure.
That seems to be going pretty well. So.
Yeah. Wherever, man. Like, if it gets you out faster, do it, because just think of that place as a stepping stone, you know, that to get you somewhere else, because you have to get out from underneath where you're at. So making a plan now. Go ahead and write your 2 weeks notice. Go ahead and wipe all of your personal information off of any computers that you're at, because that's what I did, dude. For like 2 months, I was literally out of every system. I had basically reset any personal projects I worked on. Like, I had removed them from those computers. I started packing all my stuff up like a month before I put my notice in. You know, because I was hearing from hearing from like 4 different places, and so I just started packing my stuff up, and I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving no matter where I go. So like, go, like, wipe all of your own personal information off. Don't wipe their stuff off, but anything that links back to you personally, take it off of any system that's on there. But basically set it up so the next person comes in and they're set up for success. You know, that's what I would tell them. Like, make a plan, leave that job in the best position that they can possibly be in, but make your plan to where you can leave on good terms.
Okay. Because ultimately that's the most professional thing to do, right? At the end of the day, whether or not you're working in a church or you're working for some company or organization, ultimately that's ideal. And going off of Josh, I'll let you say your answer here in a second. But going off of what Matt was saying, I mean, obviously, Matt, you gave it so many chances, right? I think we all did. The nature of a lot of our positions is very task oriented, right? So we're very much in support of what the church is asking from us, right?
Mhm.
So and I'm still in that role now. I'm technically on our support staff, right? I'm not considered a pastor, nor do I want to be considered a pastor. That's just not where God has led me. But ideally, if you have given it all you can give to the point where you feel like you're supporting, but you are not feeling like you are being supported back from a staff standpoint, then there's disconnect there, right? There's got to be some change.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that's coming from. So
yeah, it was that last staff meeting because I mean, like you said, like I gave that place so many chances,
Right.
and but the thing is I would always come back to like I must be doing something wrong. I must be doing something wrong. Let me reread that Bible passage again to make sure that I'm and so but it was that last staff meeting that was the last straw. It was kind of like it was hold on, I'm hearing myself. But it was definitely feel like when and I feel like the Lord was telling me like even if you were to place yourself under the authority and leadership of that pastor in that church, they would not accept it. That's when I was like, I'm done with this place.
Right. Josh, did you want to say something?
I think the biggest.
I don't know if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just kind of soft.
Yeah, you're faint.
Sorry. Hang on. Let me see if I can. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah. Better.
Okay. So I think the biggest thing that I would say is two things. First and foremost, if in any corporation, I'll start with the general. And we all say this as humans, but it really rings true time and time again. The first red flag, man, start taking account of those red flags and just be like, okay, this is the first red flag. I'm going to let this one slide. And then decide in yourself personally how many of those red flags you're going to allow to roll off of your back before you start, like Matt says, putting together your plan and like adapting what your next move is going to be. You got to protect yourself. And, a kind of a second part to that first part is just don't drink the Kool-Aid, man. Don't be so involved in their thing that you put aside yourself for their thing. That's number one. Red flags, and just don't drink the Kool-Aid. Like, don't, you're a person, you have feelings, you deserve to take care of yourself. God would want you to take care of yourself. God would not, our God is a God of decency and order. He would never have you out there and like cut down yourself or let someone else cut you down for the sake of their vision. And that ties directly into my second part is just know the Bible, man. If you're going to work in a church and again, noticing a red flag, if biblically you know your stuff and like, nah, the Bible doesn't say that, or no, that's not accurate. I'm sorry, that's just not accurate. Work at Will State. Like, no, I'm not gonna go for that. And my biggest thing was fear of losing the dream job. I had placed this job on such a pedestal that it was just like, what am I going to do? What is my life going to be without this place? What am I going to do? And you just guard yourself from that. Nothing is more important than your own personal mental and physical health. Like, your relationship with God, like God would never have you compromise yourself on such a level for the sake of an organization or a person's vision. So that would be my biggest thing. Just, if you know the Bible and it doesn't feel right, run for the hills. If there are a bunch of red flags and it doesn't feel right, you got to be willing to say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice. Because let's be honest, the paycheck wasn't that great anyway. So I wasn't staying there for the money. I mean, sort of, not really, but
and even if it is, right, say the paycheck's great and you're still experiencing that from, church or organization or whatever, right, wherever you work, you have to know. I mean, Josh and I had the experience of we didn't get the chance to put our 2 weeks in and do all of this, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to know that where God is going to lead you is going to be the best for your life. You have to have faith in knowing that God is going to lead you in that direction. Because, obviously for me, when that happened and being without a job in COVID, as many others experienced as well in other circumstances in 2020, that happened to me. And I got to the point where I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to work in the church again? Am I going to do something different? Well, I can't do anything different because my industry is closed down, so, and that same goes for all of our industries. So it's hard, but knowing that, like, if there's going to be a door open in front of you, know that, that's what you need to pray for, right? That's what you need to keep yourself open-minded to it. I'm blessed to where I'm at now, obviously. Matt, I know you have a new job. Josh, I know you have a new job as well. And I think we're all in the spot where God has put us. And just know that, pray for that if you are going through something like that, and knowing that, God will lead you. He's not going to put you in a spot that is going to absolutely mess with your mental health. And if it is already doing that now, that's when you need to take the appropriate steps to know that you need to get out, right? Yeah. And I think that's where Matt was experiencing that. Obviously, he got to the point where he said, I have to find something different because God has told me that I shouldn't be here anymore, and that's no fault to anybody, right? This church we're speaking of, they're going to continue on, and they're going to, they're going to, what I'm getting at.
It's somebody's fault, man. It's somebody's fault.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at, I'm very it is what it is, man. That's just my personality. But what I'm getting at is that this church is going to continue on, right? And they're going to be successful. They might not. We don't know. But at the end of the day, you have to be a little bit selfish, right? You have to have a little bit of self-interest, especially when it comes to you and your family, and ultimately if you have any kids, that kind of thing. You have to know what is best for you and what is God calling you to be, or where to be, at least in the season of your life. So, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I was saying, it's somebody's fault, and so I was talking to your pastor about this podcast, and one of the things that we agreed on, because I was telling Nikki, because Nikki listened to episode 3, and talking with your pastor, Josh, I was talking to him on the phone, and I said, it feels so good to hear it named narcissism, to hear that the problem is narcissism, and to be able to say that was the problem that I experienced in the church I was at, Yeah. And then, and the fact is that it wasn't just narcissism from the top. It was narcissism from the top and then a few levels under. And you would go to one person and you would experience narcissism in a completely different way than you would experience it somewhere else. But it was always narcissism. It was always, and I was trying to explain this to Nikki. I truly believe that pastor believes that he is doing God's will, and but that's what feeds into his narcissism, is that, well, I am doing so well because I am doing God's will. And anybody who tries to stray me away from that is going against what God told me. So therefore, they are evil spirits coming to take what God has rightfully given me. You know, and I believe that the pastor of that church believes that. But the thing is you see the three of us here, and we've all experienced hurt based on that. So then the pastor will never ask himself this unless he somehow sees this podcast, but I doubt it. But the pastor could see something like this and still not think, and still think that he was the victim. He was the victim because those people didn't want to follow God and what God had planned for them. And that's the way he acts about the split too, is they were the victims. You know, that the church in question was the victims. And not that there was something inherently wrong from the top. And it felt good to hear it named, you know, but there right now at that church, there's no guardrails in place to stop it from continuing, to stop that behavior from continuing. You know, it'll probably be another Mark Driscoll situation where, you know, it's just going to have to come to a head. Something bad is going to have to happen. Like money laundering is going to have to be found, or somebody is going to have to, something major is going to have to happen for something to change there. And the thing is people are going to be hurt. Like the day I quit and I was able to like start talking more freely, I had people from that church who were congregants of that church, you know, asking me questions like, hey, what do you think about this? Because, or even when I was in the church, I had people messaging me like, hey, you seem to not hold the same opinion. What do you think about this? And these are people who are in the congregation of the church in question, who are now no longer there because they found it to be unbiblical. And they found that like, hey, this church is hurting people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how similar. Well, to know that something like Mars Hill is so similar to our situation. Yeah. I think that was what I was trying to explain when I first hopped on with you guys is knowing that what we experience, many others are experiencing all across the country.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that every megachurch is like this. I know that the, you know, top 10 pastors that we can name off of, you know, these mega churches around the country, you know, I actually know some of these people that work there, and they say great things about these people, you know, and so I don't think it's truly like that at every single mega church, but I know there are instances within large to mega church size communities or churches in America that are experiencing this. And it's just sad, you know, because I think a lot of that derives from, you know, a lot of what you said, Matt, with the narcissism and having the feeling of, hey, I have the vision, I have the power, right, within my hands of knowing that I know what's best, follow me or don't follow me, and there will be repercussions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we experienced. At least that's what it felt like on our end. And I don't know if for anyone who were to see this and is, you know, still in a leadership role there, and they were to try to explain, oh, that's not how it is. That's how we experienced it.
That's how we experienced
right?
it. Yeah. Well, and that's another reason why I like to tell the story of that staff meeting, because to me, it was very revealing. It was very revealing because again, like I told my exit interview, I told this to the executive pastor. I was like, this is what happened at staff meeting. You weren't there. Let me tell you what happened. And I laid it all out. And I was like, I have felt like a heretic here at this church for 3 to 4 years. You know, I was there at that church for a little over 5 years. So the first 2 years was great. But then after that, like I felt like I had no place there.
Yeah.
And he wanted to, he was like, well, Matt, I've never thought about you as a heretic. I was like, I wish somebody would have said that to me. You know, I wish that maybe we could have actually had some kind of civil discord about the differences that we do see, and that we would have come to some biblical consensus. but we didn't.
Yeah.
You know.
I just to add my 2 cents, and then unfortunately I have to get going.
Well, I'm about to wrap it up anyway. So like,
okay, all right.
yeah.
So I'll be really succinct. I think I told both of you in detail, you know, the details behind, you know, them letting me go, and I think what I took away from it, and I don't know if it's piggybacking off of what you're saying, but just in general of thinking, sort of like what Mark Driscoll did to that woman. What they did to me and how they released me was so wrong on so many levels. And you just realize that you gave so much to these people who didn't truly see you. And I think I tell people the story now, you know, and I'll spare the details since we're wrapping up. I tell people the story now, but I just think of it showed me what I really meant to you. That you would put me through that you would cut me down in such a way, destroy my character in such a way, and that you would do that to me. It really showed me that I meant nothing to you. For all the we love yous, we're prepared to have you here for the long haul, your family, you're home now, you know, I'm not going to say the name, but I'm your work mama, you know, all of that just crap that I was told to be, you know, completely transparent. It was all just garbage. It was all just nice words, kind words that nobody really meant. The reality is I didn't mean anything to you. I really didn't. And the fact that you could concoct all of this and conjure up all of this just to let me go. Matter of fact, you know, I drank the Kool-Aid. We all know I drank the Kool-Aid. I was all in. I was invested. They could have just told me, hey, COVID, we're having trouble. You know, we don't like to spend a lot of money on staff. We're going to put you on furlough. We're going to let you go for a little bit. We'll bring you back later. I probably would have sat this whole time and not got a job and cheerfully, you know, waited for them to have me back if they'd have just said it to me like that. That's how invested I was into this. But the effort, the concerted effort to cut me down, or Matt to call you a heretic, or Jordan to, you know, take shots at your management, your managerial skills, or, you know, all the things that they did to us, the concerted effort it took from people to make these stories up to, you know, release me and Jordan, or to get you to the point, Matt, where you walked away. It's like who are you guys? Like, who are you? Who do you think you are? Like, how? Like, how, after everything I gave, after, you know, everything, like, did you just assume I was faking it like you were? Like, did you just assume, you know? And that was the biggest, like, hurt that I took, that, like, when it was all said and done, you know, I wore that name tag with pride, man. I said, this is my dream job. I would get upset if I left my name tag at home. You know, I'd forget my wedding ring and be upset that I forgot my name tag, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and just to realize, like, I was just, you know, it's so expendable, and even more expendable to the point that, you know, you would just draw all of these just blatant lies about me in order to make yourself look good for releasing a good hand. You know, it's just like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
So I really don't even refer to that place really as a church anymore. I always say that organization, because it's pure evil. I'm gonna call a spade a spade. It was pure evil in the end that, you know, I saw, you know, and, you know, I don't know, there's an executive pastor on staff. I'm just gonna say it, being perfectly candid. If I could just, you know, just one time, if he'd just fight me, you know, just come outside, dude. Let's settle this like men, like, and I'll let it all go, and we will move on. Just step outside and just fight me, bro, and then I'll wash my hands of it. You know, that's really the scar that I'm dealing with, And it sucks that I work for a church and I really called that place my dream job.
Yeah.
And that's how it ended up.
I would like to leave us on a positive note, if that's okay, Matt.
Well, hold on. Before we go on a positive note, let me go back on
Yeah.
another negative note because
Oh, okay.
so I wanted to read this article that came out not even that long ago. It came out July 26th, so last month, a few weeks ago, to be honest, from Christianity Today. Former Mars Hill elders Mark Driscoll is still unrepentant and unfit to pastor. So I don't know if you guys know that Mark Driscoll actually is a pastor of another church right now, Trinity Church in Scottsdale. He started that church in 2016, 2 years after resigning from Mars Hill at the conclusion of an investigation into his leadership. In recent months, several former Mars Hill elders have heard directly from members leaving the Trinity Church over concerns around Driscoll. The leaders who signed on to the statement say they felt a responsibility to clarify the charges against him as a way to warn current members of his church and continue the call to well-known preacher to the kind of repentance and restoration process he was never able to complete under Mars Hill. So these are the elders and the people who basically, they didn't force Mark out. I think they were about to force Mark out, but
Right.
But Mark, instead of what he did is he resigned and he just started a new church and didn't repent for anything. He didn't take responsibility for any of his actions. And so that's actually my fear, is that even if something big enough were to happen at this former church where the pastor had to step down or leave or get fired or something came out against him, I am sure that he would just start up another congregation somewhere.
Yeah.
And it feels, the thing is that I feel like in the area of faith and religion, and specifically Christians, we forgive so much, but the thing is we forgive our pastors more. Well, no, because like I've seen many pastors fall and like never get back up, never receive, never even get the chance to repent. But you have these mega church pastors who can literally be caught in a sex scandal and start a congregation within a year. And it just seems like we have our priorities so mixed up within the church, the big C church, and that we place more emphasis on our celebrity pastors than we do the actual name of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, totally.
Well, touch not God's anointed. We all kind of have this, like, pastor is circumspect by proxy.
And that verse was quoted many times at the church.
Yeah.
It's
true.
So Jordan, leave us on a positive note, man.
I would like to leave us on a positive note as we wrap up. I'm very thankful for everything that I've done within the past, 5 to 10 years. I've been in the church now for almost 5 years and working for a church. And I mean, as I want people to know, as bad as it was mentally for us, physically for some of us, just exhaustion and that kind of thing. But as bad as it was, and some of the emotional trauma that we maybe have experienced, I know what Josh just said obviously was a lot to take, but a lot of it's true, and that's just how he's feeling. I am very glad to say that I was around some awesome people to this day. I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys having this conversation without knowing you guys.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. Now me and being in a different position, I take a lot from what I learned and use that to further me and my mission here in Texas and my ministry that I do and my support for the church. I used to be I used to complain a lot. I used to just complain about everything, the littlest things, the carpet's green and the lights aren't the right shade of blue, and just something silly as that, right? It can be and I'm saying this for a lot of people, just know that ultimately you need to be positive in the work environment that you're in, and what's going to happen around you as far as leadership is out of your control, right?
Yeah.
It just is. It is what it is. But I think what we had talked about before, right, you then have to make decisions for your own, and you have to make decisions for your family, and to know that if it is best for you to move on or not, right? And obviously in our instances, I mean, two of us, we didn't have that choice, but it ultimately led us to a better place now, and then Matt, obviously, a better place now with the decision that he made.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would just say that knowing that within your experience, whether you're working in a church, you're not working in a church, take what you have right now and know what not to do, right? And know what to look for as well if you're wanting to work in a church again, or if you're not, or whatever the case may be. You know, in Matt's situation, I know for you, Matt, you were burned by the church probably twice now, and now you've got to the point where, you know, you're saying, hey, I want to work more into serving into the secular world, and that's okay, right? And further your gifts there. I just want to say, Matt, like, I'm so glad that you're able to use your talents towards something that may not necessarily be the church, but you're still using it for the betterment of the company that you work for, you know. And
I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm using all of my gifts and talents for the secular world. Like, I work, like I kind of do the Paul ministry, where like I'll go and I make tents for money, you know, but I want to be able to spread, and this is the reason why I made the decision not to try to get another church job, is because I want to be able to share the gospel for free. Like, I don't want, you know, people to look at you like, oh, well, you collect money to spread the gospel or to talk about Jesus and stuff. Like, you get paid to do that. And I can honestly, and this is just a personal conviction, I'm not trying to down you guys because you guys work at churches. But like, my personal conviction now is that I can, with a clear conscience, preach the gospel to people and say, I don't get paid for this. Like, I don't get paid to share Jesus with you. I love Jesus with my whole heart, that I work selling trailers. Like, I take pictures of trailers day in and day out so that I can pay my bills, so that I can read the Bible and enjoy the Bible and not be swayed by the doctrine of the organization that I'm a part of, but that I can truly, with other brothers and sisters, come together and say, hey, let's read the word, let's talk about this, let's reason about this together, and come to a consensus about what the truth is, you know. And the only thing that I would say is, like, I'm kind of like is because there's no like system to go like, well, what is orthodoxy or not. I have to go back and trust the history for myself. I have to go back and look at the church history and say, when am I going to fall out of orthodoxy or not? And that's why I'm proud to say that I'm a part of many different little bodies that, you know, all know enough orthodoxy and know enough tradition to say, you know, that view is kind of weird and that view is kind of out there, and it fringes on not being biblical, rather than saying, oh, you don't believe in tongues, unbiblical.
Yeah. But that's basically what I wanted to wrap up with, guys. I just want to say that, I mean, I was able to just have a lot of great times, great memories, great experiences. But in retrospect, you know, we did a lot of cool things, a lot of things that led a lot of people to Christ, I hope. And I have to kind of look back on that and hoping that I can continue that, you know, whether working in a church or not working in a church, you know, it's the goal, it's the mission, you know, and you know, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So,
yeah, man. Josh, you have any final thoughts or?
No, I really have gotten to a place where I'm so thankful for the opportunity. I learned so much, you know, and we've spent most of the time, you know, as Jordan said, talking about the negative. But I mean, I met some great friends, And Friends wasn't necessarily something that I subscribed to really before all of this. But then, I met you guys, and like, I wouldn't take that back for the world. So
Right.
as much as it sucked, God left me with some pretty amazing experiences and, some pretty amazing people along the way. So yeah, I'll end with that. Definitely positive.
Yeah. And like, I definitely had a lot of great growing experiences while I was at the church. When I first started working there, I was pretty hateful, like I hated people, and I was very angrier than I am now. And being there at that church really put my focus back to Jesus, to where I was like, I want to walk like Jesus walked. I want to be like Jesus. And so I have to get over my anger, and that was something that happened at that church. That was a perspective that I think if I wouldn't have gone to the church, when I did, I would still be angry, and I would still be hateful of people and things. And then again, like the relationships we have, you two guys are awesome. Nate, I wouldn't have known Nate without being there at the church. And a lot of other people, a lot of people that are still there that I still love, and like the executive pastor that Josh wants to have a fight with, like me and him had some good times. Me and him had, shot the breeze and had some really good conversations. He was a little brash and things. I don't know. I kind of wish I could have a conversation with him outside of, because now I can have it openly. I can literally say what I want to say because there's no repercussions that can fall upon me.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyways, so guys, I'm going to wrap it up. If you guys can actually stay on the line for a little bit, and we'll just kind of wrap it up and have some, chit chat. I know we have to go. So like, maybe like give us like 15 minutes to unwind without an audience and stuff. So just hold on. I'm going to leave you guys in Skype, and you guys can actually still talk while I'm wrapping up the show, and I'll be right with you guys. All right. So that's our episode today, episode 20, I think it's 28 or 38 or something like that. But thank you guys for tuning in. If you did, let me know what you think in the comments on Facebook and YouTube and things like that. You can still comment on there, or the audio will be up on the audio will be up on podcasting, wherever it is, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, all that jazz. And you'll be able to listen to it. Then definitely send me a message. My Facebook page, you can just type in mattnews.biz in the address bar, or you can look up mattnews.biz. I have a Facebook page there, and you can leave a comment and tell me what you thought of today's episode, and what you think about this whole conversation. Definitely go check out The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. It's a great podcast. And then something else I want to plug really quick is tomorrow night at 6:30, me and my wife are actually going to be hosting a Google Meet, Google Classroom kind of thing, where we're actually going to read through the entire book of Romans, and then we're going to talk about it. So that's probably going to last a couple hours. I really would love to see you guys there. Again, that's going to be tomorrow night at 6:30. And it's not going to be a big streaming thing. It's going to be a Google, like a Google Meet, a Google Classroom. So just message me on whatever platform you're on. Message me. Feel free to message me and get in contact with me. You can also email me at mattnews.biz@gmail.com and let me know that you want to be a part of that reading through Romans. And love you guys. I hope to see you guys next time I messed up my whole ending. Hold on, let me start it over. Guys, I love you guys, and I hope to see you next time as we explore more Matt News.